Hey Pete, let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to Pete the Surfaroo here in Hobart. We're on top of the world. We're with Glenn, mate. How are you?
Great, thanks.
Mate, it is going off here. Now, it is actually around about -1.
1.7.
Wow, that is crazy. That's why I've got the gloves on. I'm nice and warm. Beach outfit's still on, still happening. Now it's just had some snow up here too, as you can see in the background. Perfect view of Hobart. Now mate, tell us a bit about the history of the mountain, Aboriginal.
So this is Kunani Mount Wellington, and Kunani is the Aboriginal name for the mountain.
Yep.
The Aboriginal people from this area are the Mawanina people who've been here for 35,000 years. The mountain itself is 1,270 metres above sea level. It's 22 kilometres from the city up until the mountain, but it takes about 40 minutes to get up here because of the windy road and the 7% gradient to get up here. What we have behind us is the Hobart city. We've got the Derwent River which flows through there, and that leads out to Storm Bay, and the Southern Ocean, which Antarctica is 4,644 kilometres away. So we're one of the closest islands towards Antarctica. The snow here we get here in winter usually goes to about 700 metres, but there's 3 different geologies as we start to climb. The top of the mountain is dolerite rock, and then you have sandstone and then mudstone.
We do notice the difference in the vegetation, nice and rainforesty, then like you said the rocks, and then of course then no vegetation and lots of snow here. Now I've got some little huts up here too, little snow huts. Explain these ones.
So some of the snow huts, especially like the one up on top here, was built for the builders of the road who built up here in 1937 up to the top. And some of the other snow huts you find on the walks. There's plenty of walks, and that's one of the main recreations, mountain biking and walking on the mountain here.
That's pretty amazing. Like Hobart just down back here, we're 1,270 metres up high, and from no snow to snow, I haven't seen it for so long. Amazing stuff. Now we're expecting a blizzard in the next few days. That's why I've come up here, mate.
Perfect day, you've chosen. Yeah, perfect day.
So on the day of blizzard, this will be all covered in snow.
All covered in snow, and sometimes you have cloud here, so you don't get this beautiful view.
Yeah.
So you've definitely chosen the best day to come up here.
Great way. Now we've got our 2 towers up here as well, which is TV reception for all those Hobarts and all over Tasmania, I suppose, eh?
Yeah. Well, you have the larger tower up here is the ABC tower, which is 130 metres tall.
Wow.
And It cost $13 million for that tower, built in 1995.
You're kidding. Wow, that's crazy. Mate, well, this is a great tour. You've got to make sure you come here before you hit Hobart. See it all around here. We've got some great vision here. We've got the perfect day for all this vision. Snow, I'm hot, my hands are nice and warm. It's going off. Pete the Surfaroo. This is the start of my tour. We're going to Port Arthur next to check out the settlement and all that sort of stuff. Stick with me, guys. It's a huge one here in Tasmania. Glenn, it's a pleasure talking to you. Pete the Surfaroo up here, Mount Wellington. Yeah. Welcome back to Pete the Surfaroo. I'm here in Hobart at Salamanca, the famous place, and of course behind me we've got Mount Wellington. Check it out, it's all pretty cold here, 11 degrees at the moment, going off Pete the Surfaroo, Salamanca. Gonna check out the markets coming up on the Saturday, the big thing. Check you soon, guys. Hey guys, and welcome back to Pete the Surfaroo. We're here with Newton, mate. How are you?
G'day, hi.
It's great to talk about Mawson's hut replica. Australian scientists out in the Antarctica, mate. And this is a replica of the whole place. We're in the centre of Hobart.
Yes.
Checking it out. Now tell us a bit about how this came about. First, how did it start? How did they get this building material out there in the 1900s?
That's right, it's built of Baltic pine. And you might ask why Baltic pine, because Baltic pine comes from the Baltic states.
Okay.
So it's a pine that's used in the Baltic states in the cold.
Wow.
So it's tried and true in Scandinavia. But you think, well, Tasmania has lots of timbers that would have been suitable as well.
Yeah, you'd think so, eh?
But they wanted to use a timber that they knew worked in a cold
Yep.
environment. So they imported it
Wow.
from Scandinavia.
And we're talking like 1911. Wow, way back then.
Yeah, so 1911 to 14 was
Wow.
the expedition length. So they took the Baltic pine, they prefabricated it
Yep.
before it left Hobart, and so because the expedition members weren't carpenters, scientists.
Scientists, yes. Yep, yep.
So they had to put it together very quickly,
Okay.
and obviously they knew a little bit about building. But they had it prefabricated, so it was fairly quick to put up.
Cool. Now, the first attempt was by plane?
No.
No?
But the planes were very. They had a plane they took with them,
Yes.
but that was mainly. I thought they might use it for reconnaissance,
Yes.
but it didn't work.
No?
It failed. Before it actually got there, it broke.
Oh no.
The wing broke. So they decided just to take the fuselage,
Yes.
and then the engine was seized.
Oh, no good at all.
So it didn't work. So it was supplied by ship.
The Aurora? And that took off from here.
That's right.
Would have taken them quite a while back in those days to get there.
They deposited some men at Macquarie Island,
Yep.
and they built a hut there. And one of the reasons was they wanted to maintain wireless communications for the first times. The wireless system they had in Antarctica wasn't strong enough to
Okay.
reach Hobart.
Wow.
So they put at Macquarie Island a halfway station.
Halfway house, yeah, cool.
So they built a radio receiver down there,
Yep.
and they manned it. So they left
Yeah.
a couple of men there.
Wow.
And their sole job was to look after the radio.
Cool.
So when they arrived in Antarctica, they eventually, after building the hut, set
Yep.
up a wireless station.
Wow, that's amazing stuff.
Yes,
Now, they got there, took them a month to build
3
it.
weeks to a month.
Now, how many people, this is going to amaze you guys, the smell, and everyone smoked, and they had coal fires, and of course, how many people were actually bunked up in this little confinement here?
You can count the bunks
Yep.
going around here.
Yes.
So you've got 2, 4, 6, 8
Yep.
on that side, and you've got 8 on this side,
Wow.
and you've got Mawson.
Oh, he's the head man.
He's the head man.
With his little piano inside there.
Yeah, it's a little organ. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool, eh?
It didn't actually live in Mawson's room. That is the original piano that they had down there.
Wow,
So that's come back with Mawson.
that is
on the ship.
crazy.
And it was
Yeah.
used for Sunday.
Wow.
For services.
Services.
they played for Sunday services.
Now, he was quite into photos as well.
Well, the man whose bunk was
Yes.
sitting on here,
Okay.
Frank Hurley,
Yes,
was the photographer.
photographer. Yep.
That was his role. He was the official photographer.
And he had his own room to develop.
Well, he had a dark room.
Yes.
just over there, yeah.
That is amazing. All confined in this little space.
Yes. After taking all the photos that you'll see around the hut,
Yes.
he went to the First World War and took a lot of photos.
That's
So a lot
amazing.
of photos from the First World War that people have seen and recognised are his.
All these guys, and like you said, they all smoked the pipe.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, and of course the fire over here we're looking at now.
Mm.
Coal,
Yep. That's right. Well, we had biologists.
biologists, yes.
We had some people looking at climate, which
Climate.
is a very interesting given today's.
Yeah, way back then. Gee.
We had geologists,
Yep.
and they were looking at the link between Tasmania and South America as a geological link. So finding rocks,
Gee.
and taking rock samples. So Mawson was a geologist. That was his role. That was his profession.
That's pretty amazing
Yes.
stuff, like back in that time already, how switched on they were in different fields, finding out all these different things for the planet.
Yeah. So I mean, we have through Mawson's research,
Yep.
we have a really good baseline that scientists
Yeah.
can use.
Came back to their hometown, and then they were shipped off to the war.
Quite a few.
So from the cold, back to the cold.
Yeah.
That is amazing stuff.
Yes.
World War One.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, do we know a few of them survived the war, or some?
Yeah, most of them survived.
Yeah.
Came back to Australia
Wow.
and then went back to their professions, wherever they were. So there were people here that were dog handlers.
Cool.
There were people here that, obviously someone had to cook.
Yes, that's right.
They took
yeah.
that in turns.
Wow.
There were some interesting stories about that because you can imagine not everyone was a good cook.
No. So there'd be the bad days.
One person, all he claimed to make was tapioca pudding.
Oh no.
That's all he said. That's all I can make.
Wow.
So that's what he decided to make. I don't know if you
amazing
tasted
stuff.
tapioca pudding.
And like the temperatures outside, what were they? Like, I mean, I'm feeling really cold here with this blizzardy wind going at the moment here in Tasmania. But out there, what were the temperatures?
Yeah, well, I mean, in the hut it was 4 degrees.
4 degrees inside here.
Yep.
Oh, that's freezing.
Yep. But it was warmer than outside, which was minus 20 to minus
Minus
30.
30 degrees. Wow, that is amazing. So they would have had to wear lots of gear. Now there would have been frostbite and all that sort of stuff
Yeah.
happening out there too.
Well, when you say lots of gear, this was their insulation.
These thin gloves.
Wool.
Wow. That's amazing stuff.
I mean, that was their insulation. They had wool.
Wool.
Yeah.
So that does the trick. As I say, guys, original is always the best. Wool. Stick to it. All this plastic stuff never works.
Wool and cotton. You're sitting on one of the outer jackets, which was just cotton.
Cotton stuff. Wow.
So
And that's what
it's
kept
quite
them
thin.
warm. Thin, but does the job.
But it was a windbreak.
Does the
It
trick.
stopped the wind. Yeah.
Cool.
And it didn't have to stop the water because it doesn't rain in Antarctica.
Wow. That's amazing
Too
stuff.
cold.
And how long did the crew actually stay out there before they came back?
Well, the plan was for a year.
Okay.
They were staying there for a year. The ship came back after a year to pick everyone up,
Yep.
but unfortunately Mawson wasn't there.
Oh, so where'd he go?
Mawson was delayed. He was out on an expedition,
Okay.
and the expedition went badly wrong.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Because Ninnis, who was one of the officers, he was a British officer.
Yes.
He fell down a crevice,
Oh,
and he took most of the supplies with him.
so he was
In the
gone?
sled. He was gone.
Wow.
And coming back, so Mawson and Mertz, who
Yeah.
was a Swiss skier,
Yes.
and coming back, they had to live off what they had on their tent. So all their supplies were down the crevice, gone.
Yeah.
So they had to eat some of the dogs.
Wow, that's pretty heavy stuff. Eating your best mate.
And what they didn't realise was eating the dog livers was poisonous.
Oh,
so
no.
they were poisoning themselves.
So they died?
So Mawson just made it back.
Oh.
Mertz died.
Gee.
He died, we think, from eating the dog livers. And Mawson was really in a bad way.
Yeah.
His skin was starting to peel.
Gee.
He was he just made it back.
Tough times.
So 5 people stayed.
Wow.
So they had to stay another year.
Another year. Wow, that's incredible.
So that was not prepared for. They hadn't planned for a second year.
Wow. Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that adventure. We've put it into a nice little tight shell for you to tell you a bit about this. Lots more to tell, but I mean, they're the basic facts, mate. You've covered it all.
Right.
It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed this little piece. Informative to everyone out there. I didn't know a lot of this stuff either. Pete the Surfaroo here in Hobart. Lots more places to see. We'll see you soon. Bye for now. Yeah. Welcome back to Pete the Surfaroo. I'm here in Hobart at Salamanca, the famous place. And of course behind me we've got Mount Wellington. Check it out, it's all pretty cold here, 11 degrees at the moment. Going off, Pete the Surfaroo, Salamanca. Check you soon, guys. In Tasmania, Hobart, I'm at the Maritime Museum and I'm here with John, mate. How are you?
Good, good.
Now John, there's lots of history with Tasmania.
Yeah.
Now let's go right back in time, back to the original people of Tasmania.
The Tasmanian Aboriginal people have been in Tasmania for at least 40,000 years, if not longer, maybe up to 50,000 years. I mean,
wow.
That's an incredible time. From about 12,000 years ago, they actually became isolated from mainland Australia because with the end of the last ice age, sea levels rose, and Bass Strait, which had been land, but over some years, some hundreds of years probably, gradually sea levels rose and Tasmania was cut off.
Wow.
So for the last 12,000 years, Aboriginal people effectively developed their own culture and their own way of life, completely separate to the mainland.
That's amazing stuff. Now, then the explorers were introduced, coming from Dutch, English. How far do we go back with the explorers?
In the 1600s, the Dutch were heavily involved in Indonesia, what is now Indonesia, collecting spices and trading. The Dutch had a company called the VOC, the East India Company, which was a huge business. I mean, it was literally a global business, was making many dollars at the time. Abel Tasman was a sea captain with them, and he was actually sent on an expedition by his boss, a guy called Anthony Van Diemen, to see if they could find out more about the Great Southern Land. Because they knew that there was land south of Indonesia. The Dutch had been to certain parts of it, but they just didn't know how big it was. So in 1642, Tasman set sail, and in his journey sort of down through the Southern Ocean, he decided to head north, and that's when he discovered Tasmania.
Wow, way to go.
From the European's perspective. He came across the west coast, he then sailed around to where Denali is in Marion Bay, which is down towards Port Arthur in the southeast. And they actually sent a small boat ashore there for the first time, and they planted the Dutch flag. Only there for a very short time, didn't meet any of the Aboriginal people, although they knew that there were people on the island because they could see fires burning. They could see notches in the trees where Aboriginal people had obviously cut into the trees. And then they sailed off, and then the Tasmanian Aborigines were left basically to themselves for another 130 years before Cook's expedition discovering the eastern coast of Australia. You then start having the French explorers coming around. In the 1790s, you have Bruni de Castro, who was actually searching for another French explorer, La Perouse, who'd gone missing. And in his searching, he actually came to Tasmania, and southern Tasmania. Came on 2 expeditions, and they were very important because they taught us a lot about Aboriginal life, because the French were very good at recording the life of Aboriginal people. And so we have in our collection an Aboriginal bark canoe, which is really based on those early French explorers and the records they made.
how long would it have taken the Europeans to come over from there in those days, like sailing over?
Oh, well, if you were sailing from Europe, it would take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, sometimes even up to a year, because depending on the conditions and the climate at the time. And then the British came to Tasmania, or what was then called Van Diemen's Land. That's where the name came from, named after Anthony Van Diemen, the Dutch governor. The British were worried that the French were actually going to colonise Tasmania.
Oh wow, so there's a bit of a rivalry going on.
All right. So they decided to actually set up a settlement in Tasmania, and that was done in 1803. The first British settlement in what would become Hobart later on. They have a little settlement north of Hobart, and then they moved to where Hobart now is in 1804.
And then after all this settlement happened, then we started to get this penal colony where all the prisoners or convicts were shipped to Australia or to Tasmania and then put into Port Arthur.
Convicts that came to Tasmania, they were assigned out as road gangs, work gangs. They would be assigned to people's farms and other properties. But if they committed another offence in Tasmania, they would be sent to Port Arthur. Port Arthur was what was called a secondary settlement. And over the course of about 40 years, about 12,000 convicts passed through Port Arthur.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, although it's not, about 68,000 convicts came to Tasmania overall.
You're kidding? So still some remaining.
There's a lot of convicts still in Tasmania today.
Now, we've got something amazing here by one of the convicts, actually, was one of the boys there, made this boat.
Yes, we actually have a dinghy that was made by one of the convicts who'd been a boy convict. He'd been sent to Point Pure, which was a boys' prison, very close to Port Arthur, but only for boys as young as 8 years old would be sent out there. And later in life, he became an apprentice to the Wilson brothers, who had a shipyard down at Cygnet, about an hour's drive south of Hobart. And he actually built this dinghy for Mrs. Wilson. And
that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, and we have it in our collection. So.
The big thing, which isn't very nice, whales.
Whaling it's a disgusting and awful, a smelly business, and we certainly don't want people to go out hunting whales today, and there's no need to kill whales today. But you have to understand that whaling was a really, really important industry for Tasmania. And whaling is really what made Hobart. From about the early 1810s right up until the 1850s, whaling was a significant industry which made people very, very rich. And many of the buildings that you see around the Hobart foreshore today, the old sandstone warehouses, they are there because of the money that came from whaling. In our collection we have quite a lot of whaling implements that we used on whale boats. We have some fantastic models of whale boats. We have a wonderful video that was made back in the 1920s, actually in America, off an American whaling ship called the Charles W. Morgan, which still exists. It's actually been restored. But that actually shows the act of whaling. And it's quite gruesome because a real whale is being killed, because back in the 1920s it's what they were still doing. It was a dangerous business. Many sailors got killed when they were out trying to hunt the whale. It was a long, exhausting business. Men could be at sea for months and months. When they came home, you would probably smell these guys before you saw them coming up the street, because
fish oil,
it was disgusting. And they didn't have hot showers in those days to clean themselves, and it certainly made Hobart and a lot of people in Hobart very, very rich.
What was it, the oil or the meat or what?
It was the oil. Whale oil, they discovered that whale oil was very, very good for light. So they would actually use whale oil for lamps, and it burnt very brightly and without a smell. And up to that time they were using other oils which weren't as good, and so whale oil became very, very valuable because of that. In fact, whale oil from Tasmania was sent all the way back to London, and it was used to actually power street lamps.
That's amazing.
In London. It was so valuable, and literally hundreds of barrels of oil would be collected. Now there were three main kinds of whales. There was what they call the southern right whale.
Southern right, yes.
They were a coastal or bay whale. They swam around the coast. They were very easy to kill because they were slow moving and they were in very close to the shore. Then a little bit further out you had the humpback whales. The big whales were the sperm whales. Sperm whales were the deep sea whales. They can go up to 2,000 metres deep. Sperm whales have got teeth, whereas the other two, the humpback and the right whale, they're baleen whales. They don't have teeth, they sieve. krill through baleen in their mouths.
Cool.
The sperm whale had big teeth that they would use to crush the giant squid. And the sperm whale, they could be up to 25, up to 30 metres long. Very, very big.
It's amazing
whales.
how big these animal mammals can be.
Oh yeah, and inside their head, they've got a big square head. It was literally full of oil. They also then discovered that once they cut the meat up of a whale, if they actually put it into and boiled it, a lot more oil would come out from the meat as well. So they used literally everything of the whale to extract the oil. They really didn't, the meat wasn't important for eating or anything like that, it was the oil.
Gee. And I was told, I'm not quite sure if it's true, back in those days there were so many whales that actually some of the whalers actually walked on top of on the backs of some.
We actually have some interesting stories. The Reverend Knotwood, who was one of the early church ministers of Hobart, he lived in Battery Point, just down the way here. He actually wrote in his diary that he was kept awake at night by the noise of the whales in the Derwent estuary. There were so many of them breaching, coming out of the water.
Amazing stuff.
And making noises. Another person, he wrote in his diary that he reckoned he could walk across the Derwent on the back of the whales. I'm sure you couldn't, but it just shows you how many there were. There must have been, dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of whales in the breeding season and migration moving through. I mean, today thankfully we are seeing more whales come back around Tasmanian waters.
That's great stuff.
Yeah, it is, and people get very excited when they see them. We're not getting the hundreds back in, but at least
slowly it's increasing.
Yeah,
so it's good.
All the Sydney to Hobart yachts when they come in, one by one as they finish the race.
Just finishing off with a glass of wine and a beautiful view.